Right now, it's hard to read climate headlines and not feel a little overwhelmed. Here are some from this week alone. China is currently experiencing a record-breaking heat wave that has dried rivers, hurt crops, and caused hydropower shortages throughout the country. One weather historian said, quote, "There is nothing in the world climatic's history which is even minimally comparable to what is happening in China." Let that sink in for a second. Meanwhile, here in the United States, new water cuts were announced for states that use the Colorado River Basin as the river and its surrounding tributaries reach record lows caused by a decades-long mega drought, the driest the region has been in nearly 1,200 years. In the last month, the United States has experienced not one, but 6 once-in-a-thousand-year rain events across the country. It's clear that it is not a question of if, but when the disastrous effects of climate change will happen. And scarily, it's a question of just how bad will things get. The good news is we are seeing some action. The recently signed Inflation Reduction Act represents the biggest investment to combat the climate crisis in American history. And just this week, California announced its plans to ban the sale of new gasoline-powered cars by 2035. Joining me now is Bill Nye, the Science Guy. He's the host of a new show on Peacock called The End is Nigh, where he dives into the most epic global disasters imaginable and demystifies them using science. Let's start right there with that news out of California. Bill, how significant is it to you that that announcement has been made banning the sale of gas-powered cars? Because it seems to me that it would mean that our fight against climate change would be even more powerful if perhaps the entire country could follow suit.
Well, California, when California passes automobile legislation, it affects the whole world. You know, there's so many cars in California, so many people driving in California. Emission standards, for example, affect everybody's emission standards. And, you know, we have political issues in this country, and people talk about states' rights and the right of the people and so on. Well, California is the 6th largest economy in the world, and what California decides to do with its cars affects everyone.
Bill, let's get to your new show, The End is Nigh. In each episode, you're going to dive into a different super disaster and then break down what we could do to survive and even prevent these kinds of events. Let's take a quick look.
It doesn't have to go down that way. Together, we can save Earth with science. Join me as I take on 6 world-ending disasters. Each one leading to my imminent doom. Brace yourself! So, yeah, I guess you could say I really am dying to save the world.
We must protect Bill. But Bill, what drew you to make this particular show now, and what are you hoping that people are going to get out of it?
Well, the hope, which is not a plan, but the hope is to change the world. So it's a strange thing, or strange to me, that when life is good, when things are running smoothly in the world, we watch romantic comedies. We watch comedy. But when things are anxiety-producing, the world around you, we watch anxiety-producing television and movies. We watch disaster movies during pandemics, for example. And so the producers and I, Seth MacFarlane, Brandon Braga, and I, realized that part of the reason conservative media are so successful is they scare people. They're always scaring people. So what we're doing here is we have 6 one-hour disaster movies. And in the first half hour, we see the disaster and some disclosure. In the first half hour, I get killed. But then in the second half hour, I come back. And if we had things in place, if we planned for these potential problems, if we prepared for them, then we could avoid them or have them not be nearly as problematic as they could be.
Do you have a concern, though, Bill, that the show is maybe too over the top, or for lack of a better word, too Hollywood for people to get a real educational value out of it?
Short answer to that would be no. that actually we feel it's pretty measured, that the things we describe are quite reasonable, that things could really go wrong. And so also the solutions or the planning that we suggest is we think, very well thought through. We hired real scientists who really study these real problems and show solutions or approaches that we strongly believe are reasonable. You know, if we had these coronal mass ejections from the sun where the electricity would go off, there are steps you can take, infrastructure you can build to avoid those sorts of problems.
I don't want to get too far into the spoilers for the show, but in one episode, you examine a hydrostorm, simultaneous hurricanes that could drown the planet. I mean, I'm in Florida, so hurricanes are obviously something that are very near and not so dear to my heart. You know, Bill, there are some former presidents that have offered nuking hurricanes as an option to deal with weather severe storms. Would you mind clearing the air here? I mean, people need to remember, it's important people to know you are a scientist at heart. You are a scientist by training and experience. Can you dispel whether or not that's an option to be able to get rid of a hurricane?
You can't. No, a nuclear weapon isn't going to address a hurricane, everybody. That's just silly. I'm sorry. Come on. No, the problem, I guess his idea was that you have so much heat in one place, you would cause some sort of disruption to a storm. That won't work. But here's something that is surprising to me. A study has been done that is reasonable. If we had thousands, not dozens, but thousands of very large wind turbines in place, you could decrease the severity of a hurricane. You could slow it down at the surface level, which really surprised me, I got to say. And you say I'm a scientist, I'm a mechanical engineer. Fluid mechanics is my business. Classical physics, the flow of fluids is my thing. But that really surprised me. There's this thing called the Betz limit having to do with how much energy you can extract from a moving fluid. And it is amazing. If you had enough turbines in place, you could control very large storms. And when I say very large storms, everybody, one of the ideas in that first show is that you would not just have hurricanes, but you'd have 5 of them simultaneously, 4 in the northern hemisphere and 1 in the southern hemisphere. And this is based on computer models that climate scientists and meteorologists have written to figure out what would happen to all this energy that's getting stored in the atmosphere as we add more greenhouse gas to hold in heat. And another little thing before I hand it back to you is Category 5 hurricane, Katrina, miserable. This picture behind me features Hurricane Andrew back in 1992 in Florida. Huge thing. Category 6 hurricanes have occurred, but so far only on the open ocean. But what would happen if it came ashore? What would happen if more than one came ashore? So these computer models suggest that you'd have water from hurricanes in Oklahoma, Tennessee, pretty far inland from the Gulf Coast in this example.
You know, Bill, as an anecdotal note before I have to let you go, I actually lived through Hurricane Andrew in August of 1992, survived it, was displaced out of my home for more than a year. So all kidding aside, I know that there's a change that needs to be made. You are advocating for it. One of the things you say is to get out and vote, which I also support. But I am very excited to say that your show, The End Is Nigh, it's going to be coming out on Peacock very soon. What's the actual date that it's going to be out, Bill?
Actually, it was yesterday, August 25th.
Perfect.
Perfect. So you can stream it. You can binge. 6 episodes, 6 disasters, all based on science, all based on things that could actually happen in worst case, or bad case. So let's get ready. Let's get ready. Let's prepare the electrical grid. Let's prepare our zoning laws. Let's get new ways to produce electricity, store it, and transmit it. Let's go, people. Let's get it done. We can change the world.
Bill Nye, the Science Guy, thank you for being here. Your new series, The End is Nigh, is out on Peacock. I'm happy to hear, though, Bill, that in every episode you survive. Bill Nye, we must protect you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Carry on, Katie.